Good morning. It is 8:42 a.m. On Wednesday, May 29th, 2019. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. So, today's first day back at work after Balticon. That's what it was. I had a recovery day yesterday, but for the remainder of this week, I'm still working from home. So just as another little bit of a heads up, once I am back to the office routine next week, these videos will start going out probably significantly earlier once again. More in the 6 o'clock range than the 8:30-ish range, I would say. Or 8:30-ish, like, when was the last time I did it earlier than 8:30? Anyway, yesterday, on this recovery day following Balticon, I went and saw Detective Pikachu in the theater. And this was a movie that I had been intending to see ever since I saw the first trailer. Now, to establish, I guess, to calibrate for you my history with Pokemon. I've never played a Pokemon game all the way from start to finish. However, I have played most of a couple of them. So I'm certainly familiar with how the games work. I have seen a couple of episodes of the anime, and otherwise, just generally, it was not something that I was ever passionate about, but certainly aware of and interested in. I think my first actual exposure to it came from when I worked at a daycare center before getting my first professional job and just being aware that the kids were obsessed with it. Anyway, over the years, I had heard of the Detective Pikachu video game and was like, that seems weird, but okay. And then I heard they were making a movie of it, live action and so on, and I, was not thinking that that was going to be something I was all that interested in. And in particular, it pressed similar buttons to all of Disney's live action remakes, which personally are not something I am excited by. I think that it is totally fine if you love those live action remakes. Good for you. I'm glad you do. It's great to like things, but I'm a big fan of that old school 2D animation, and it's a real bummer to me that we hardly see that anymore because of just the way the industry has changed and the fact that Disney's putting so much money into essentially just taking a movie that's good already and just remaking it in a way that, like, at best is similar to a movie that already exists. I don't know. That's not my jam. And so when I heard about a Detective Pikachu movie, I was like, well, it's not like I have any particular affection for any of the Pikachu movies or, Pokemon movies, so it's like, do I care? But then that trailer comes out, and I was like, whoa. That is not what I expected at all. It is playing with the genre, like the detective story thing, but also it just seems to have a remarkably well-realized and integrated world based on the idea that Pokemon are real, and that's kind of amazing. And so that was always what I was interested in, and so I decided to go see the movie, and sure enough, that was the part I was interested in. I'm a fan of detective movie stories, and I'll say that the story in this one, kind of all over the place. It simultaneously needs to be simple enough for kids to follow what's happening, but also it's kind of super weird. And I don't just mean by virtue of Pokemon existing. I won't spoil what happens, but there's this, the plot. The plot is strange, and it kind of veers wildly back and forth in terms of various elements of it that the story is not its best thing. But the thing that really leapt out about the movie to me in the trailer was just the depiction of a world where Pokemon are real and all over the place, and people interact with them, and it's just normal. And that's amazing. And it is amazing in the movie. It's very cool to see. It is something I had not seen before on TV, and I loved it. And in particular, even though, I had kind of just suggested that the story is not necessarily everything I might have wanted it to be, nonetheless, the chemistry between Ryan Reynolds as the voice of Detective Pikachu and Justice Smith as the lead, this kid who's trying to find if his father is really dead or not. They're trying to find this guy. It's like the chemistry between them is a lot of fun, and there's some real earnest emotion in the complexity of the main character's kind of baggage, because there's some real nuance there in terms of his own history, in terms of like what was his relationship with his father and his relationship with Pokemon, and how that all ties together into what his deal is surprisingly nuanced for a movie that is ostensibly for kids. I won't necessarily say that this is a movie with a ton of like pop culture references. I mean, there's some, and obviously if we're counting Pokemon as pop culture in that sense, it's full of those references for sure. But by and large, it is a movie that lives within its own boundaries, right? And that's actually something really admirable, I think. It doesn't feel like it has to reference our world in order for its own story to be told. And I thought that was pretty cool. The humor is mostly pretty good. There's a few places where I was like, okay, well, that's, a laugh line for 4-year-olds, or, oh, that is a joke that's kind of already been told to death. But mostly it works pretty well, and I enjoyed it. But again, the real star in that movie is it makes it look like Pokemon are real in a way that is far more impressive than I would have imagined possible before seeing it. And so kudos for that. So I think it's worth watching if you have any interest at all. If not, I don't think it's going to change your mind, but, there you have it. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it there for now. But remember that later tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, I'll be running my Dungeons & Dragons campaign, So Many Levels. And so we're going to have the heroes of legend diving into the elemental plane of air and maybe try to steal a space pirate ship. I don't know what this gesture is about that. But anyway, I'll talk to you tomorrow for 5 more minutes.